Hello, and welcome to another exciting edition of Infinix Office Hours. I'm your host, Chuck Rackley. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer. And with me today, we have an exciting new guest, Ron Kero. He's our Chief Development Executive. He works specifically in an Ni2 Health Division of Infinix, focused specifically on hospitals. Hello, Ron.
Hello, Chuck. I'm happy to be here.
Very good, very good. Hopefully, you have some better hockey recommendations than your brethren had last week. He predicted a Bruins win and was shut out, unfortunately.
I'm not very qualified to predict any hockey wins, but if you want to know anything about MLS soccer, ping me for sure.
I
Always
will,
bet
I
on the
will.
Seattle Sounders.
Will do, will do. So this week we have an exciting topic all around charge capture. Very revenue integrity oriented today. So a subject near and dear to my heart. So let's jump right into the fun stuff.
That's
So
great.
obviously it's a new year. Everyone's gotten over the New Year's Eve parties and is ready to go. Most organizations have a fresh start of goals, fresh round, finding revenue lift and settling their 2024 priorities for revenue cycle initiatives is obviously a big thing going on. So what can you share from your client work that's going on that will help hospitals and RCM leaders where to focus this year?
Yeah, Chuck, that's a great question. If there's as I'm talking with hospital revenue cycle executives around the country, right? I think prioritization is really the key challenge for them. I hear I don't have enough resources. I've got to find revenue. I've got way too many initiatives. How do I choose from this? And there's IT constraints in the organization as well. So given all of those parameters, you got budget considerations, what will fit within the budget, what will fit within the bandwidth constraints, and where do you find, right, that revenue lift that's most impactful. And a lot of this is kind of flying blind based on gut feel. So we have now completed end-to-end revenue cycle assessments across over 50 hospitals. And this is all across the country. That's pretty close to, I think, 30 states, different states with results. And, we looked at, what are the biggest opportunities that hospitals have hidden within their revenue cycle? And the answer is actually surprising. It is, there is one opportunity that is universal across every assessment we've done, and that is charge capture optimization. Simply making sure that the hospital is billing for every service they provided to their patient and doing that every time. Sounds pretty simple. We all know the world of revenue integrity is super complex, which makes this actually a very significant challenge, which is why it is, in fact, a universal opportunity across hospitals. But the most surprise here, because I think every organization kind of has this gut feeling that, yeah, we're probably missing some charges, but they don't know what that translates to from a dollars and cents standpoint.
Mhm.
What we found from our assessments is that it is almost always the single largest opportunity for an organization to generate new revenue lift out of their revenue cycle. We have found the average hidden opportunity is somewhere between 1.5% and 2% of total net revenues for the organization. I'm going to say that again, right? 1.5% to 2% of total net revenues. That is larger than the net income for more than half the hospitals in the country with one single initiative. Now, there is a caveat that benefit varies by state. Most of the charge capture opportunity for hospitals is from outpatient services, and and specifically from your commercial payers. And so, right, the I will say that the number of opportunities for across organizations is fairly consistent, but how much money that translates to depends on how you get paid in your outpatient payer contracts for commercial payers. So we've seen, in some urban markets in states without very favorable structures for those agreements, meaning if you find you missed a charge and you put it on a claim, it may not translate to any new net revenue, or it may translate to a lot. So probably the floor on that is about 0.5% of total net patient revenues as the worst opportunities we see. Best is well north of 3% in some states where those contracts are predominantly a percentage of charges reimbursement from all of the payers. And so, but regardless of, which state, if you're looking to prioritize where to invest your resources, almost always charge capture optimization is the single largest opportunity for any hospital organization.
Interesting. So, me coming from an operations background, whenever I'm thinking about assessments and where we're leaving money on the table, my mind immediately goes to that, AR and denials and even bad debt. And I agree with you. I think people leave this off the table all too often. And when you see revenue cycle companies touting this net revenue improvement, most of the time they're talking about realizing revenue they've already got, or they're realizing more what's on the table. And there's only a few ways you can actually increase net revenue from an initiative. And this is definitely one of the better ones. There are a couple other ones you can do with, underpayment realization and, DRG planning and CDI, those kinds of things. But this one to me seems just like the easy thing to do. And a lot of people just don't take advantage of it.
I agree. And conceptually, it makes sense that you actually want to bill for everything you actually do for your patients, right?
Sure.
And for most organs, right, they do a great job for almost everything that they bill for. But there's always some that are complex, and for a variety of different reasons, they either never bill for it, could be a technology problem, could be a knowledge gap on the team that perhaps somebody said 10 years ago, you can't bill for it, and nobody ever thought to look again. Or
Hmm.
it's more often the case, things they are billing for some patients, just not all of the patients. And they really don't have a lens into how often are they missing and why are they missing? And when they do miss, what does that mean from a revenue loss standpoint?
For sure. So now that we understand that, there's lots of different strategies that we've all seen over the years on the best way to address charge capture. How would you compare and contrast a couple of the different business models for addressing charge capture?
Yep, yeah. Great question. So I think first and foremost, any organization that is looking to harvest this opportunity and capture the missed revenue, you have to have a technology solution as part of this. And when I say technology solution, the starting point is all the EMRs out there where they have all built in some functionality, but that functionality is only as good as the build on the front end of it. But that's certainly the starting point. Let you the technology you already have do as much as it can for you. But beyond that, this is not something that can be solved with just people. And so you need additional specialized technology to help your people resource experts find the opportunities. So the most commonly available business model for this, there's some SaaS software solutions, right? After you submit your claims, you run them through the SaaS solution, and it flags claims for the hospital revenue integrity teams to research, where based on the algorithms within that software platform, it will say, hey, we saw you provided this service on a claim. Sometimes we see another service paired with it that's not on the claim. And then the hospital team takes that output, they go review the medical records. And if they find that, hey, this is correct, it wasn't a false positive, that they missed something, then if there's enough money involved, they may right rebuild an updated claim and add that service to it. So I'd say that's the most commonly known and used approach to augmenting what's already there available within the revenue integrity team and the EHR platform. I'd say, the positives of that, it's a generally low expense in a SaaS model, right? You have your licensing fees. And so, right, if budgets are a challenge, right, the fixed fees that you sign on for are relatively low. And it is your team that's doing that work though. So you have to have the resources to chase the output. And that output generates a lot of false positives. And so there is a lot of work to stay on top of there. So the risk to the organization is as resources get tighter and tighter, if you have the SaaS tool, do you keep people dedicated to continue to follow up with all of that output? I'd say, and again, this is good, right? It will help you. That approach will help you find the majority of what your team is missing on the front end. I will say it's also a little harder in that environment, though, to fix the problems because you're generally dealing with one offs, didn't bill for this on this claim, but there's no context for that. Do we miss that one out of 100 times or do we miss it 90 times out of 100? And so when you go to try to have maybe a conversation with the clinical department to look at their workflows, you're lacking some information that is incredibly helpful to the dialogue to bring change to the organization. But again, still a very helpful model uh, from capturing lost revenue. Less frequently used, there are some consultancies that they've kind of learned over the years where the usual suspects are, I like to say, for where organizations tend to miss charges, and they will audit a random certain number of charts that have those in those areas and see what their specialized audit reviewers find. Uh, Again, that's a narrower scope, but for the particular things they focus on, if those are the things you're missing as an organization, they're very effective at identifying those. And generally, with an audit, what they are able to do is give context to what is the scope of the problem, and use that to then work with the organization to address some of those workflow issues that are causing charges to be missed and improve them. So that is a higher fee-based engagement. It is usually kind of a one and done, but again, very effective if right the things that are commonly missed align with what your organization is missing. I'd say the third model, which is the one I'd say is less well known, but is how we tackle this with Ni2, is that we really provide a turnkey service where we conduct 100% audit of the prior year's claims to give you that full context for where the opportunities are, how many opportunities, and which departments are driving those. But our focus is to fix root cause. And so we've really specialized on the implementation side of this to bring best practice workflows to the clinical teams so that the bills, once you implement those, the bills go out correctly the first time and you don't have any leakage rather than other models where you are updating claims and resubmitting an updated claim with the new service on it. So those are really the three models that are out there for help. They're
Mm-hmm.
all effective. So it really depends on what are the goals within the organization.
Gotcha. So one of the things that, I've seen several times, I'm sure you have too, especially with that first model where you have some sort of tech and a group of people that are either revenue integrity RNs or RHIAs or some sort of professional group. It works really well for a while, but they have a problem quantifying what their actual value is. So usually what happens the first time there's a budget miss or it's time to cut 2% out of ops, those are usually the first people gone. Can you talk a little bit to why that is and maybe some ways to get around that?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head in that because it is pretty much a daily one-off. Every day you run the new claims through it and you see what was missed. You're always missing that big picture, and organizations rarely track what was the net benefit that came from fixing those things,
Hmm.
or for rebilling the claims. And in fact, I've also seen some organizational fatigue because much of what those platforms can deliver may not generate any net new benefit. It may be something that was being left off of a claim. So, from a compliance and completeness standpoint, you could add it, but it may not actually generate net new revenue, depending on, is it a service that's bundled? Is it on a fee schedule? And so it doesn't make any difference. And so I'd say those things, combine that with just fatigue with the team, with researching false positives, right? There are many services that are paired together, but not very frequently. So if you want to find those circumstances that you're missing where the pairings are not frequent, you have to sift through a lot of false positives where, nope, we didn't provide that service. And so there is some burnout from just right going down. It's like, drilling for oil. You don't get oil every hole you drill. And it's the same thing with charge capture. And so when resources get tight, organizations don't have enough staff to go around, kind of all of those things tend to combine into, over time, those platforms not realizing their full potential within the structure of the organization.
Gotcha. So you mentioned false positives before, so it's kind of a good segue to my next question I had for you. When I think about a lot of the EMRs and practice PM systems that are out there, a lot of them have a rev capture tool of some kind already in there, right?
Yep.
They all have some sort of tech that, some CFOs and some rev cycle leaders would say, well, if this isn't way better, I'm not going to use it. So give me some reasons why someone would do that. And then I got a follow-up question after that. So talk about, the inborn or the native systems compared to a third-party system and what some of the benefits might be.
Yep. So a couple of points there. I'll start with the broad context. We have our assessments, and our client base spans all of the EMRs that are out there. And we don't see a significant difference in opportunities for charge capture revenue, regardless of which platform the organizations are on. They all have some technology available. Usually, right, some of it is plug and play, it's there. Others, it takes your revenue integrity team to help with the build of the algorithms, and you have to customize that to your scenario. And we see that's where a lot can get missed. But I think the other challenge that the EMR companies see head on is that they don't want to embed algorithms that generate a lot of false positives because they don't want their clients to be chasing a lot of dead ends. And so I'd say when they build in their, rules for trying to help you capture revenue, they're looking for the easy stuff that generally goes together every time. It still may not be customized state by state with, how you get paid from an outpatient basis across all of your payers, but I'd say that's the general philosophy there. And so we often I guess, just saying there that, right, I think the EMR providers have found kind of the right balance from where they sit in the ecosystem from a technology standpoint related to charge capture, right? Any company that specializes in charge capture, right, it depends on their appetite for generating false positives. In a SaaS model, they'll go farther than your EMR, but they'll also draw a line around, across those things that don't go together too frequently. A company that, provides the full service and is on a contingent basis, right? Then for them, it makes sense, like for us, to really fish everything and have lots of false positives, because the more false positives you have, the more real positives you find. And so that's how you get to maximum net new revenue.
Got it. So quick sidebar on the false positive. Machine learning and AI is kind of something that, everyone likes to talk about right now. Where do you see that interacting and intersecting with this modeling? So right now, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these false positives just have to be gone through by a person.
They
Um,
do.
are, are we ever going to get to a point where we can have, you know, Siri do that for us, where we can talk about, hey, have a machine learning algorithm try to attack these rule-based systems?
I can foresee a future where an AI approach could sit on top of the algorithms for identifying where you might have missed a claim and
Hmm.
have that AI engine actually do the medical record reviews, right? I think that's right. I think that I'm not aware that that exists anywhere yet today, but that is certainly a possible future because that is taking place in other areas of healthcare where you have AI doing medical record searches.
Got it. All right. Interesting topic on that one. We could do a whole nother office hours just on AI and ML in a medical record review. So the next thing I was curious about, we were talking about EHRs before. I'm wondering if there are some specific times that make sense to implement a charge capture process. And the one that's coming to mind is an EHR migration. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going from Meditech to Cerner, Cerner to Epic, whatever it is. Talk a little bit about that timing and how it might make sense to do it then.
Yeah, no, that's a great question and very timely because we see, especially in the smaller hospital world today, we're finding many organizations with scheduled or planned conversions to new platforms. And what I think that there is a misconception out there that moving from one platform to another will solve their charge capture opportunity. That is definitely a misconception, but I think is a byproduct of the sales process from the vendors trying to in the sales process of who you're going to select to convert to. So our advice is that the ideal time is to come in 9 to 12 months before the conversion while you're on the current platform. Identify where your opportunities are, fix those workflows, implement the new workflows, and then carry all of that knowledge forward into your build in the conversion to the migration to the new platform so that you uh, don't, you know, go live with the new platform and basically embed all of the things that you were missing before on top of all the other nits and gnats that you have to chase down that comes with any one conversion. And I certainly have had conversations with many organizations who, more than a year post conversion, still have people on their revenue cycle teams trying to identify and fix where they stopped charging for things that they were charging for before, let alone the things that they weren't charging for 100% of the time before. So the best time to actually come in and fix it is before you kind of cement your architecture and build in the new go live environment.
Yeah, that's a big one for sure.
Yep.
Let's skip down to a couple of fun topics here. So, obviously, you guys we've done a ton of these with lots of different hospital groups. What are some surprising charge capture things that you've seen in specific areas, or you can think of a case study where the rev cycle team was shocked to see?
So, we have there's the list of areas that everyone knows that if you're missing charge capture, where's your most complex environment? Well, it's going to be, the emergency department, outpatient surgery, recovery anesthesia. It's going to be the imaging services are kind of the usual suspects where, well, yeah, if I'm missing something, it's in those areas. Interestingly enough, for many organizations, the largest opportunity we find is actually in outpatient physical therapy and occupational therapy.
Hmm.
Um, and that's something nobody would ever think of. We kind of stumbled across this by accident. And it's what we have found is that this is a universal opportunity across hospitals uh, with therapies in the hospital environment. And so we went out and sought out the expertise of a therapy specialty company that provided 700 therapists providing services in all different treatment settings, including hospitals, and kind of picked their brains. And what they said is, what we learned from them is that if you were providing the highest quality clinical care and following appropriate guidelines, then your billing of services and intensity of units should mirror that. And what we find is that in the hospital setting, the billing and the care don't match each other. And so we're able to bring to those organizations a set of metrics that they can measure how are they doing in having the billing side match what they're actually documenting that they're providing to their patients. And across our clients last year, we just did an analysis. It generated 21% revenue growth in those therapy departments. And it's a tremendous
Wow.
opportunity, and the therapists actually welcome this, right? They wanted to be good by their organization, just like the clinical teams in the hospitals, right? They want their organization to be successful. They want to do the right thing. They never had the ability to measure this, and they never had the mentoring to help them get there. And so that's been probably the biggest surprise for us across this journey.
Okay. So coming up to the end here, a couple quick questions on implementation. So talk about some of the most common challenges you see on, or like a barrier that would keep someone from going after a charge capture strategy.
Yeah, so I would say the first barrier that we see is just a barrier with IT resources and organizations, right? It
Hmm.
is not uncommon to hear we can't take on any new projects for 6 months. We've heard of some that are longer than that. And so if you're trying to introduce a solution that requires a lot of IT resource commitment when you don't have that team bandwidth available, or you have to get in line in priorities in the organization, that can be a huge challenge. From how we solve that from the Ni2 world is that we actually have a team of business intelligence experts that all they do is extract data from client systems and understand them super intimately. And so that's we've solved it by actually taking that requirement off of the hospital teams. So if our team gets just system access and system IDs, we've already written all of the scripts to extract the data that is needed to do the work to help the organization identify and fix root cause. And so that is, I'd say, definitely a necessary step, kind of solving the IT barrier inside the organization, which would, with whatever path you want to choose and go down for tackling charge capture. I'd say, secondly, is simply budget constraints. If you're going to put in place a new platform, who's going to chase the output and go review all of those medical records, right? You need new budgeted resources to be able to do that. And, we're hearing it's awful hard to free up resources. And so you have a bit of a catch 22 here in that you can't justify the resource investments because you don't know what the payoff is until you have the tool in to identify it. And so it becomes very hard to make that case when, right, there aren't enough dollars to go around for all of the requests from the departments. I'd say the last barrier, and one which we see frequently inside of organizations, and even for those that have those experts, have the software tools, is simply pushback from the teams that need to change the workflows. And it's not because the teams don't want to do the right thing. It is often because there is a difference of opinion within the organization as to what is the right thing to do. So I like to describe this as there is no single source of truth for the organization to turn to solve that impasse. And then if you haven't taken a large sample size to know how much money you're trying to solve for here, right, it makes that conversation much more difficult. It's actually much easier for us to come in and help, even with some known opportunities inside the organizations, because we do this all over the country. And so we're able to be that source of truth for the organization and point to many other organizations around the country who are doing things in the way that we have identified, or the software platform identified, for best practices for charging strategies.
Got it. So it's been a great talking with you here, Ron. Last question. Give us your 30-second answer on this one. I'm going to put you on the spot. You got 30 seconds in the elevator.
Okay.
What advice would you have for an executive, a leader of any kind, looking to add charge capture to their high priority list? So how do you move to the top
Yeah, how do
of
you move to the
priorities?
top? No, I think that for sure you need to do something. It is your largest opportunity. Look for the path that you can go down that fits within your budget constraints, within your IT constraints, because there are paths that solve for both of those for you. And then in an ideal world, find a solution where you fix the root cause so that your claims go out properly up front, rather than a solution where you're always updating claims and rebilling them. And I'd say, lastly, don't take risk if you don't have to from a financial standpoint, right? There are different business models out there for fixed fees. There are models out there for contingency. I'm always a believer, when budgets are tight, and CFOs like it too, right? Don't take the risk. Let your business partner take the risk that they'll deliver the benefit, and let the benefit pay for their fees.
I think that's the word of the day. The benefit pays for the fees right there, for
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
Well, Ron, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. If anyone has any questions for either one, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, Chuck. Cheers.
See ya.